Thank you, everyone, for coming to APIs 101 with Postman, where we're going to learn some API essentials. I'm your host for the day. My name is May. I use they, them pronouns, and I'm the student community manager for Postman. Here's our agenda for the day. So I asked in the beginning if anyone is familiar with APIs, and we have a lot of people who are brand new beginners, maybe know what they are, maybe have heard it before, but are very new. So we're going to go over an introduction to what APIs and Postman are, why they matter, why people use them. Then we'll talk about requests and responses and really get into the weeds of what APIs are. We'll have the opportunity to try some things out. I'll give you some follow-up resources, and then we'll have time for Q&A at the end. Typically, I do these workshops on Zoom, and so I would typically have a chat like that I could see. Since we're doing this on Google Meet, I can't see the chat while I'm presenting. So if you do have questions, you can still feel free to put them in the chat. I just might not get to them in a timely manner, but I'll take some breaks to check if there are any questions, or you can just like use your mic and let me know. So what is an API? API stands for Application Programming Interface, and it's really just a way for services to communicate with each other. So to kind of give some more context, over the years, software's become a lot more complex and collaborative. There's more software and more developers now than there's ever been at any point in history. So developers no longer need to create every single service that they want to use from scratch. This is where APIs come in. So APIs allow developers to access data from a service or a platform, kind of like Google or Twitter, without having any prior knowledge of how that code base has been implemented. So if I want to use the Twitter API in order to post tweets to, say, my personal website, I don't need to know how Twitter was made. I don't even need to know how the API was made, because the API is kind of hiding that and just giving me access to the data that I want, so I don't have to worry about anything else. So one way that I like to think about APIs is as a digital restaurant. So if I'm at my favorite restaurant and I am looking at the menu and I decide what I want to order, I can't just waltz on to the kitchen and make my demands. I have to place my order with somebody first, typically a waiter or a person at the front counter. So in order to do this, I decide what I want. I tell the waiter, place my order. The waiter will take that order to the kitchen. What I ordered will be made back there. Waiter picks it up, sends it back to me. So there's a lot of back and forth between the waiter, between me and the kitchen, but the kitchen and I never have to actually talk to each other, which is the beauty of APIs. I don't have to worry about what's going on in the kitchen, and the kitchen also doesn't have to worry about what's going on with me. They just take the orders and make them. Likewise, the waiter is also working as an API, not just in the communication sense, but in the security sense as well. APIs, since they are giving us access to data, or in this case, with the restaurant example, is giving us access to food that has to be prepared, the API has to protect its server. So it needs to protect, the waiter has to protect his kitchen in this case. So if we go to a place like McDonald's, you have to pay first before they make your food. Same with a lot of other restaurants. It's becoming more popular now that you pay first and then you get your food after you've paid, ensuring that like people don't take the food and then just leave without paying. So this is one way that the waiter is being secure for the restaurant. This is also a way that APIs are secure for servers, because they will check to make sure that people have the right credentials before they actually give any sensitive information to the person who's requesting it. So that was a very high-level overview. Let's talk about APIs in a more technical sense now. So in this example, I'm taking a picture and posting it to Instagram. We start at the Instagram app. So I open the app, I press that lovely little plus button, and it opens the camera app on my phone, so I'm able to take a photo. Fun fact, when you take a picture with Instagram, it's actually just opening the camera app on your phone and then overlaying other things with Instagram on top of it. This is why when you take pictures, you get a copy that is rendered through Instagram and then a more low resolution copy as well. Enough of fun facts though. We have more fun content to go through. So I take this picture. It opens the camera app. I take the picture. The camera app is going to send that photo that I just took back to Instagram. And then I can do lots of fun things with it. The automatic filter that Instagram has that makes everything look all pretty and professional gets automatically applied. I can change the filters if I want. I can add text. I can add my hashtags and such. And then when everything is all said and done and I'm ready to post it, I hit the post button. But something else happens before this post gets seen by the wider social network. So when I hit the post button, the Instagram app is going to take my post and upload it to Instagram's servers. So these are remote cloud servers. In order to kind of talk about this in more fine detail, when we are taking a picture or making a post with Instagram, that post only exists on our phone until we upload it. So once it's uploaded, then it is not just on the app on our phone, it's on the wider social network. So now other people can see it, they can like, they can comment, all of those cool things. So there's a lot of moving parts in this example, lots of different pieces of software that are, well, 2 of which are on the phone, 1 is a remote server, but lots of different pieces of software talking to each other. With that in mind, how many APIs do you think are in play? And I will look at the chat in order to see. Two. Well, they're very close. It's a little bit more than 2, but there's at least 2 APIs that are in 3. Yeah, Yo-Yo got it. There are 3 APIs. Does anyone want to take a guess at which things from this example have an API? Oh, yeah, pass 1. So 1 for the camera, 1 for the servers. Yep. There's 1 more, though. All of them except the client. Which one are you saying is the client? The final application. So like Instagram or the actual like social network itself? I can go back and show you. So we have the Instagram app, we have the camera app, the remote server, and then the social network. But the social network is hosted on the remote server. The network. Yeah, so all of them except the network. Yo-Yo Panda has raised their hand. What's up? I didn't know that Google Meet had a hand-raising function. That's neat.
Oh, yeah. I was just wondering, is there a specific one for, like, just the app?
Yes. So Instagram as an app has an API as well. So these APIs are allowing the Instagram app, the camera app, the remote server to all communicate and share data with each other and make requests. Fun fact, that same remote server is how you get updates to Instagram on your phone. So it's sending data down to the app, and the app is like, okay, I guess I'll accept this, and updating accordingly. So yeah, and Leah was mentioning the client. In this case, Instagram can be both the client and it can be an API. But for lots of other people in this call, those words probably have no meaning right now. Don't worry, we're going to talk about them in a little bit. Ooh. Okay, so I'm going to keep moving forward now. We're doing great, everybody. Oh no, I have to go through the animation again. Okay, So there's an API for everything. And when I do say that, I really do mean everything. So we have APIs for platforms that you probably use, like Spotify, Twitter, and Discord. We also have APIs for smaller services. I like to think of these as if platforms like Twitter and Google and Discord and all of them are like AAA title games, like your Halos and Gears of War and what have you, then these services that have APIs would be your indie games. They'd be your Donut County, your Firewatch. So the cat API is one of my favorite APIs. It is a service that just shows you different photos of cats. And because it has an API, you can put those photos of cats into your programs without having to Google and search for photos of cats. It's wonderful. Another one that I really like is YouTube to MP3. So the fun thing about YouTube to MP3, if you know what a library is in programming, a library we like import into our programs for a specific programming language that has all of these cool functions and features that we don't have to create ourselves. So think about NumPy, for example, that's specific to Python. There used to be a lot of YouTube to MP3 libraries. And so YouTube to MP3 libraries would take a YouTube link and convert the video into an MP3 file. So this way you can get music off of YouTube. But because these were in libraries, you can only use them for specific languages. So I was using Node, I can only use this library for Node. If I wanted to use Python, I'd have to find a YouTube to MP3 library for Python. In the case of YouTube to MP3 having an API, you don't have to do that anymore because it's kind of like a library for any language. Because now instead of worrying about all of the specific functionality, we're able to actually just get instead of having to worry about the functions and commands that we have to use, we're able to now just get the information directly from this API. Without having to actually process these things on our own, which is super helpful. So APIs turn software into Lego bricks. And, excuse me, what I mean by that is that APIs really just allow you to pick and choose what you need in order to build what you're building. Kind of like when you're a kid, you want to make something with Legos, you find the right pieces, you put them in the right place, and then you end up with your epic creation. In this case, you are finding different APIs for the functionality that you need for your software, putting them in the right places in the right order, and then you're making your overall piece of software. You're making your program without having to do nearly as much work. We don't have to cut and make the blocks ourselves in this case. So, what is an API? We've talked about APIs in very high-level terms. Now I'm going to talk about APIs in like the most driest, most technical terms, because when you go online and you look at more documentation and such, these are probably the words that they're going to be using. So we need to be familiar with that. So an API really just acts as a mediator between a client and a server to provide access to data and services. So a client in this case can be anything from a website to a mobile app like Instagram, and it can even be your web browser. And it's going to make requests to API endpoints on the server. So we're going to use Postman as our client today. We're going to be using Postman in the browser, and we're going to make some API requests to retrieve, add, update, and delete data. But what's Postman? Postman is a collaborative API development platform, and it really just simplifies the process of developing, using, and testing APIs by wrapping it up nicely in a little UI. So in the old days of working with, oh, I need some water, or else I cannot speak. Okay, much better. So in the old days of working with APIs, we used a command line tool called curl. Command lines are great for lots of things. They were very powerful. They give you lots of behind the scenes information, but they can also be very painful to work with, especially once your commands start getting more intense and complicated and just complex. So curl is the basis of how we work with APIs. Curl allows us to send requests, it allows us to get data back. It's very powerful, but once you have more complex API requests, it becomes really difficult to keep up with that in the command line. So enter Postman. Postman takes the functionality of curl and puts it into a nice little UI so that we're easily able to make a request, get our data back, and it has more developer tools as well to help, well, developers. You can even make APIs with Postman, which is really awesome. So I'm going to check the chat to see if we have any questions. This is a great time for questions if you have them. Let's see. There's so much in the chat. Okay. Open weather map represent. Yes, yes. I'm glad that people like Donut County. I just started playing it with my wife, so it's a really great game. Wikipedia does have an API. I'm glad that you understood what library meant. Do Twitter scrapers use APIs? It depends. There's web scrapers that don't necessarily use APIs, but Twitter has, so there's a very interesting thing with Twitter. Twitter has a lot of, how do I say it, like protocols now to kind of limit who can use the API. It makes it a lot harder to use the API. So there's probably less Twitter scrapers that are using the API if they were just kind of automatically making bots. I can talk about that later, maybe towards the end of the workshop. I'm glad that you understand why so many job openings want Postman, and I actually have more that I can talk about later. Yes, stay hydrated. Cool. Looks like we're all caught up in the chat. Let's keep going. We're going to learn more about APIs. We just learned what the basics of APIs are, but now we're going to get into the weeds of it with requests and responses. So, making requests. This is how we interact with the API. It's just like placing an order at a restaurant. So in order to make a request, we have three main ingredients. We have the method, which is kind of the action, what we want to get out of this. We have the address, which is where we're sending this request. And then we have the path, which is kind of like a sublocation at that address. So we're going to talk about all of this in a lot more detail, starting with methods. So methods are how we specify what we want from the API, and there's a lot of different methods, but I'm only going to focus on these four because really to work with any API, these are the only four that you really need to know in order to get data, send data, etc. So using Twitter as an example, let's say I want to get treats. Been thinking about cats. Let's say I want to get tweets. So I would use a GET request to retrieve information, retrieve some tweets. If I wanted to send a tweet, if I wanted to send information, I'd make a POST request. If I wanted to update something like my profile, for example, or like my little name on top of my username, I'd use a PUT request. This is how we update information. And if I wanted to delete a tweet, I would use a delete request to do such. Now that we have methods out of the way, let's talk about endpoints and paths. So this is where our interaction with the API takes place. So an endpoint is really just a channel of communication for the API. This is where we are sending our request, and it's typically also where we're working with the API. So this example on the screen, linkedin.com is the endpoint. I'd be using the LinkedIn API because I'm sending my request to that endpoint, which targets LinkedIn. The path is like a sub-destination on your endpoint where your request can be heard and executed. So if we think about, let's say, sending a letter, let's think about sending a request as sending a letter to somebody. The address and In this case, I'm going to be sending my letter to a friend who lives in an apartment building. The address that I put on the letter would be the building itself, the building's address. The path would be my friend's unit number for whatever apartment that she lives in. So the path is always going to be somewhere within the endpoint, but it's the specific place you want to send it to. I don't want to just have the endpoint listed. I don't want to just have the address of the building listed on the letter, because otherwise it's not going to get sent to my friend. So this is why it's important for us to have paths, because they separate out concerns. Going back to the example that's on the actual screen, LinkedIn.com would be our endpoint. So we'd be sending something to the LinkedIn API. On this particular case, it would be the feed path. So when you log into LinkedIn, the feed is the first thing that you see. When we are doing things on the feed, we can like posts, share posts, make posts. But if I wanted to do something like add a new job, excuse me, I wouldn't do this on the feed. Just like if I was looking at the actual website itself and it shows me the feed, I'm not going to be able to add a new job on the feed. I need to actually go to my profile to do that. So we'd use the profile path. If I wanted to edit my connections on LinkedIn, I would use the connections path, because I can't do that directly on my profile. So the path is really there to separate out concerns for us. So let's talk more about specifying details for our request, because we've talked about the basics, but there's a couple other things we can do. So when we are building requests, we can add query parameters. If you've ever worked with a database, you've probably worked with query parameters before in order to get data back. That's exactly what we do with query parameters with an API. We're querying the API in order to get data back. So if let's use Twitter as an example. If I am going to look for cat tweets, I would go onto the search path for twitter.com. And then my query parameter would be cats, because that's what I'm searching for. But there's a lot of tweets about cats. So maybe I need to be more specific. Maybe I want to say that I'm looking for cat tweets from today, because I just want the newest, the freshest cat tweets that I can get. But that might still be a lot of cat tweets. So then I might limit it with another query parameter to say I only want to get 10 of the most recent tweets from today. So this is a way that we can use query parameters to really filter out the noise and get exactly what we want. Next up is authorization. This is a big topic, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but it is important to know. We actually have a separate workshop about authorization. So if anyone finds that at some point, you can learn about it there. But auth is really important. We have authentication and authorization. Authentication is things like API keys. The APIs we're going to be working with today are things that my team and I created. So there's no auth or authentication at all. We don't have to worry about these things. But authentication is basically giving you the keys to the castle, right? If you go to a hotel room, you need a key in order to get into your room. But let's say you break the rules at the hotel, you get kicked out, or you just decide you don't want to be there anymore. It's time for you to check out. You hand your key back because this is not yours. You are not the owner. So the key is a way for the hotel to make sure that you're doing the things you need to do, and that you have access to everything you need access to on a base level. That is how API keys work, and this is a level of authentication. Next up, we have authorization. So authorization, it's not just verifying that you are who you say you are, not just verifying that you have access, but verifying that you are actually the person that should be accessing the thing you're trying to access. So if I were to make a tweet using the Twitter API, I need to prove that I am the person behind that Twitter account, so that I'm not just making tweets on other people's accounts. That would be a disaster. So with authorization, there's lots of different things. There's OAuth 1 and OAuth 2. OAuth 2 is starting to become the norm. These are forms of authorization that give you keys and IDs and secrets and access tokens. Lots of little things when you register your application with the service itself so that they know that like you're actually supposed to be doing what you're doing. This way you're able to send this information to the API and the API goes, okay, this person seems to be all right. I'll send them this data, or I'll let them send this tweet through. Now that we have that out of the way, let's talk about headers and body, which are ways that we send data. So headers are how we send data. It's really metadata, data that needs to go to the API. Body is how we send data to the server itself. So if we go back to the Twitter example, if I'm going to send a tweet, all of the auth details are going to go to the API because that's the only one who's concerned with it. So I would put those in the header of my request. If I were to send the actual tweet, the message that I want tweeted, that would go in the body of my request because that's going to go to the server. But when we are sending requests, we're not just calling out to the void because the void is calling back to us. We're getting a response. So responses have two main elements. We have status codes, which at a glance tell us what happened when we sent our request. 200 is okay, everything's good. 201 is created. You're trying to make something and you did it. Good job. 404 is not found. You'll notice as we kind of get more into things, there's kind of a naming convention with all these status codes too. Everything that starts with a 2 tends to be good. Everything that starts with a 4 tends to be an error. And everything that starts with a 5 tends to be a different kind of error. And everything that starts with a 3, you're not really going to run into because we're not doing kind of admin-y things. We'll see what this looks like in more detail later. And then we have body data. So just like we can send a request with body data, we can get body data back in a response because the body is just how we send data. So body data will usually be in JSON format. Sometimes it's in HTML. And really, like if you're doing a GET request, the data that you're getting back is going to come back in the body of the response. So we're going to actually make some requests. I'm going to check on the chat, see if there's anything that I need to address. Have you ever made an API to interact with another API? That's kind of what APIs do. They interact with each other. I have a couple of examples I'm going to show you, which might help clear that question up. Okay. Authentication. Me laughing because I only use public APIs that rarely need auth. Yeah, that's the way to do it. I've been that person before. I have absolutely been that person before because auth was very scary and I was like, no, I'm not going to do it. And today we're also not going to do it, but we have this workshop's called APIs 101. We have another workshop called APIs 102 that we do. And that's where we work with actual authentication with the Spotify API. So if you're afraid of auth, consider taking that. So we're actually going to work with APIs now. I'm going to put this link in the chat. So actually, I'm going to send a different link that might be a little bit easier. Oh, we changed the UI. How did I not know this? Oh, no, actual work. Don't worry. It's fun work. You're going to have a good time. I promise you. You're going to have a great time, Yo-Yo. So I've sent a link. Is anyone here familiar with like GitHub? Okay. Kind of. All right. So I just sent you a link to fork a collection. Let me explain a little bit of what's going on the screen. In the meantime, while I'm doing this, you can also feel free to make a Postman account. It's really easy. You can even sign in just with Google, which if you're on this meeting, we're all on Google, so it's great. But let me just give a little bit of explanation for what we see. I sent you a link to a workspace. So a workspace is kind of like a repository in Google, not Google, GitHub. It's kind of like a repository in GitHub. It's where we can put a bunch of different related things for one project. In this case, this project is Postman Student API 101 workshop. That's y'all. We're in the workshop together. Over here, we have a bunch of folders. We have basics of API with auth, and building an API. So the basics of API, I sent you a link to fork it. These collections are, well, what they sound like, a collection of things. That's what these folders are. Those things in this case are API requests. So we're going to work with the basics of API collection just to get familiar with APIs. And I sent you a link to be able to fork it. So forking works the same that it does in GitHub. You're making a fork like you would make a new branch, or if you were forking a repository. So we're going to give the fork a label. If you don't know what forking is, it is making a copy of something. So we're going to give our copy a label. I'll call it curious. And then we choose a place where we want this copy to be copied to. So a different workspace, since y'all don't have editor access to the workshop workspace. So once you make your account, you can select my workspace. I have a specific workspace for these workshops, so I'm going to fork it there, and I'll click Fork Collection, and it will reload the page. And yes, you do have to make an account in order to use the link. But when you click on it, or when you try clicking on fork, it should force you to make an account in order to do that. So once everyone's been able to fork that link, let me know. If you need me to go back through any steps, let me know. Dark mode. It's what everyone needs. I agree, Yo-Yo. Dark mode is for Discord and Twitter. Yeah, you're going to need to sign in order to use the workspace. And so when it comes to dark mode, I've actually not, I have not actually switched mine over to dark mode. Shame. Wow. Okay. Wow. The nerve of you. Anyways, do people have their forks? Thank you, Pogman. Thank you for being poggers. Okay. Yay, I'm glad it worked, Yo-Yo. Cool. So it's weird. Since I normally do this in Zoom, I'll like ask people give me thumbs ups when they're ready to move on. you can just tell me in the chat when you're ready to move on. Thank you. Okay. Oh, I'm seeing lots of thumbs ups. Awesome. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and move forward. If you need a little time to catch up, I will try and like help you in between the demo. And y'all have been so supportive with each other. I'm sure y'all will also be helping each other. It'll be great. So now that we are nicely forked and we have our collection open, I'm going to introduce what we're doing today. So we have a couple of different APIs under this one link. This will be our endpoint. We have a quote API, a joke API, and a book API. And so basically what's going to happen, every API has a view. So we're going to add either books, jokes, or quotes. It's a little bit slow sometimes. Please work with me. Yay! So we have all these different things. They all essentially work the same. It's just a different topic. So which one should we use? Books, quotes, or jokes? Which API do y'all want to do? Books, jokes. Let's see. Wholesome messages. You can do wholesome messages in quotes or in jokes. You can do your memes and jokes. It's kind of a split. So how about this? I will know how to do this in the jokes API. If you want to use the books API, you can, but the challenge is that you have to use the documentation in order to do so. And let me take you through the documentation. So documentation is super, super important. Documentation is basically your menu of options for working with any API. So if you want to work with any API, you need to find the documentation for it first. Otherwise, how are you going to know what to do? So this documentation has the endpoint URL. This is the URL that we're going to use for any of the APIs we're working with. We have 3 different paths, also for whichever API you're working with. I'll be going through jokes, so you will be working from the joke path. If you're working with books, you'll be working with the book path. And then we have information on how to use, how to make a get, post, delete, and put request with every API. So it'll tell you how to do a get request, a post request, put request, and delete. The structure for these things is all pretty similar across the 3 APIs. But like I said, I'll be demoing in the joke API. If you're following the book one, you're going to have to follow the documentation in order to figure out what exactly you need data-wise when you make your request. So I'm also going to be referring to this documentation throughout the entirety of this workshop for the remainder of it, just so that you get a feel for, yeah, if I don't know how to do this thing, I got to look at the documentation and figure it out, because that's the reality of when we start working with APIs. So before we do anything else, I actually want to show you something. And this is kind of off script. I'm going to call this Get Google. You don't have to follow along. You can just watch. And I'm going to make a GET request to google.com. So before I do this, what do you think is going to happen when I send that request? When I make a GET request to Google, the website will crash. That's one option. I get all of the data. I'll get a status 200. Nothing. I get a big brain. Ooh, that sounds nice. Okay, we have lots of different ideas for what might happen. Fulfillment. Let's go ahead and click send and see what happens. So we do get status 200 okay. I can't remember if it was Michelle or Yo-Yo who said that, but somebody said status 200 okay. Yes, we're getting a status 200 okay. This is the response pane. So let me give a little context. This is our request pane. This is how we make a request. These are our methods that we can choose from this dropdown. We have a way to add our actual URL, our endpoints and our paths, and then we can send it. We can add our query params, all that wonderful stuff. So this is the request side. Now we have the response side down here. So you can see your status code, and then this is the body of your response. So by default, we get HTML from Google, including the Google Doodle. It is Angela Peralta's 175th birthday today. Happy birthday. This is in a pretty view, which basically means that the HTML is nicely formatted. If I go to raw view, it's going to show me everything in one string. If I go to preview, it is going to show me a rendered version of the actual website itself, minus the image, because it does not have the image. But this is a way for me to actually see what I got from my API request. So here's one question. Based on this, I did a GET request and it gave me back the HTML. What are some ideas that you get about this? Everyone's saying that they did not get a response. Oh no. Is everyone getting a hang up where it says sending request? Okay, so it's working for some people. If it did not work the first time, try reloading your tab and then trying doing a get google.com again. Make sure that you say google.com. If you just say Google, it's not going to work. But I guess I can rephrase what I meant. So where do we say that? So up here where it says get, and there's this dropdown, there's also this little, if I take this out, it says enter request URL. You just put google.com in the request URL, and then you hit click send. There you go. Hopefully that clears things up for some people. But basically, what I mean by what do you notice about this is we did a GET request to google.com, right? And then it gave us back the website. But we can access the website on our own on the browser. Do you notice anything about this? Yes, the browser is making an API request. So great job, Michelle. 10 points to Michelle. When we are working with APIs and we make and we are making a request, we are, sorry, I got caught in my words for a moment because I was just reading the chat and seeing people give Pogger points to Michelle. When we are going to any website with our browser, we are making a GET request. Yes, the browser secret is revealed. So when we are making a GET request, we're actually just going onto a website. Can we see that a HTTP request is the method that the API uses to communicate? Sorry, I saw time to make my own browser. Yes, do it. Edward, can you kind of clarify what you mean? We are, oh, Oh, can we say that an HTTP request is the method that the API uses to communicate? Yes. So the HTTP request, we're making an API request, but we're using HTTP methods, and those methods are get, put, post, and delete. So when we are using these methods, it's just telling through the HTTP, so what Michelle said, hypertext transfer protocol, it's just telling the browser through that protocol what we are trying to do, like what the outcome of this request should be. And so, Lyndon, you can name, like what Michelle and Yap were saying, you can name your fork anything. So I named mine, yeah, it's a title. It doesn't affect the function, like Edward was saying. I named mine Curious because this is a Curious Learnathon. But you can name it Learnathon, you can name it Poggers, you can name it whatever you want. It's just a title for your fork. Thank you, Michelle. Okay, I'm gonna keep going forward. So there's one more thing I wanna show you when we are making a GET request to Google. We don't just go on Google to look at the home page. No, we use Google. So I'm gonna add a query parameter. And so query parameters use a key value pairing system. So the key is, in this case, going to be Q. That just stands for query. This is pretty standard across a lot of APIs, but check your documentation before doing this. And then the value is just something that we're going to input. So the key is really something that the API itself is going to recognize automatically. The value is what we're searching for. So Q is query. And then I'm going to look for things. I'm going to look for cats. And I'm going to go ahead and click send. Now, when I do that, ideally, I want a whole long list of beautiful cats in my search results. But instead, this just showed me the home page with cats as a search query in the text box. Why do you think that is? Actually, I will go back to the page so that people can look a little bit longer while they think, and then I'll go back to the chat. Okay. I hope you had enough time looking at the page. So I will get to your error in a moment, Lyndon. There's another API for the search. You're asking the google.com page with cats written so nothing happens. Yo-Yo, you are kind of in the right place with this, but it's not necessarily, okay. Edward and Yo-Yo, you're like moving towards the right place. We're trying to search for something, but we're missing. There we go. Erwin has it. There's not a path. So we actually need a path. Remember when I said earlier when we were working with, when I was just showing you the difference between endpoints and paths, and I was talking about sending a letter. And if you send a letter to your friend at an apartment complex, but you just put the apartment complex like address there without putting your friend's apartment number on, it's not going to get to your friend. That's basically what happened here. We made this request looking for trying to search for cats without actually saying that's what we're trying to do, because we didn't say that we're looking for searching. So we didn't add the search path. So if I add the search path and I click send, now, oh no, it brings up the movie. That's not what I wanted. I'm not going to click on the images tab because I just don't want to know. I just don't want to know. it will show you the results at the end, what you're actually looking for, what you're actually searching for. And the fun thing is we can copy this, what's written in the little search, well, not the search, in the request URL part of the request pane, copy and paste that just into your browser. And it's going to show you exactly what you're looking for. It's going to show you the same thing that popped up on this page. Thank you, Edward. Okay, wonderful. Okay, so we have like half an hour left. So let's get into actually working with some things now. So I probably won't be checking the chat as much. And I am loving seeing you help each other out. So please keep doing that. So we have some people that are working with jokes. We have some people that are working with books. Just to take you through this again, when we make a request and we add data to this, it's going to pop up as these little cards. So we're going to be able to see what other people post. I repeat, you will see what other people post and people can see what you post. So please keep that in mind. But go ahead and just to start off, we're going to do a GET request. So we're going to use the endpoint and whatever path for whichever API you're working with. So in this case, I'm using the joke API. And so I'm going to put postman-student.herokuapp.com/joke. And I'm going to click save. And I'm just going to click send. And it's going to give me back a joke. So in the response pane, I can see that I have 2 brackets and then some stuff in it. So this is an object in JSON. So JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation, and an object is between 2 brackets and used as a key value pairing system. So everything on the left-hand side that is in quotations and red, everything's color-coded in this. This is a key. So you can kind of think of these keys as like the schema. If you've worked with a database before, it's like a schema, or you can think of it as the syntax. This is like the syntax for the actual API. So, or for the data inside. So every object that we have is going to have an ID, it's going to have an author, it's going to have a joke, and it's going to have a source. This is going to look really similar for the book API as well. Everything has an ID, an author, a book name, and then a link to the actual book itself. So if I go back to joke, I can see that we have on the right side values. So we have 3 for the ID. So this is the 3rd object. The ID is just talking about the object itself, by the way. So this always has to be a unique number. Anything else can be a repeat, though. So the author, the joke, the source, these can all be repeated. But the ID always has to be unique. And then if you have the same information in 2 different objects, the way that you tell them apart is through their ID. Anyways, moving forward. So we have the author. In this case, there's no author. We have the joke, the first rule of programming. If it works, don't touch it. And then we have the source for where this joke came from. You might have noticed that when I went back to this, if I click send again, it's going to show me a random joke. So when we actually do get with any of these APIs from our Postman group, these APIs will show you a random joke every time you just do a GET request. So if I do this again, I keep getting a different joke. I haven't seen ID number 2, though. I haven't seen joke number 2 pop up, though. So I want to look specifically at that joke. Add at the end of your path a /, and then the ID of the joke that you want to get. So each API has numbers 0 to 3. I'm going to look at 2. who is a programmer? A programmer is a machine who turns coffee into code. So this is what joke number 2 is. If I click send a couple of times, it's just going to keep showing me the same thing. So this is how we do a get request. This is how we get either random data or we get specific data. Typically, when you do a get request with pretty much any other API, it will give you maybe all of the data at once, which is where query parameters come in to filter and all of that good stuff. But in our case, we built this so that when you do a get request on the path, it just gives you one random joke. So it's really dependent on how each API is built. So we have done a get request to get data. Let's go ahead and add data now. So go ahead and add a new request. Call it make joke, or if you're making a book, you can call it add book, something like that. And from that dropdown, go ahead and click on post and copy and paste your path and endpoint, or your endpoint and your path in that order. Go ahead and save your request as well. So now that we have that, let's look back at the documentation itself. So if I want to make a post request to send a new joke, in a JSON object, use the following structure. So you can actually go ahead and copy and paste this structure. You'll notice that it's the same as any of the other things that we got. So it's an ID, author, joke, and a source. And then we'll fill in all of these other attributes on our own. So we send data through the body of our request when we're sending it to the server. So where it says params, go ahead and click on body. That should be a couple spots to the right of it. And now I'm actually going to check the chat just to make sure people are following. Okay. Hey, Leo's not a joke. Leo is cool. So now that we are making a joke, you're going to click on this radio button that says raw. And this next part is pretty important. Go ahead and just paste what you copied in. You'll notice that everything is black and white. We don't want it to be like this because that means we're sending raw text. If we send raw text, the API won't know what to do with it and it will explode. And by explode, I mean you're going to get an error. So you're going to click where it says text up here. And in the dropdown, it has an option for JSON. Click on that. When you click on JSON, now it's all nice and color-coded, and it's wonderful. That's what we want. So go ahead and change some things around. Like I'm going to change the ID to 89. Don't steal my ID, please, because when I post this, it might give me an error that this already exists, and then I'll be sad. Do you want me to be sad? I hope not. Fill in the author. I'll just put my name in. It's May. I'm May. And then add your joke. Why did the chicken cross the road? Because he is a chicken. That's what they do. The source of the joke, where this joke came from, me. Or more specifically, my own head. So this is my joke. I'm ready to send it. I'm going to save it for good luck, and then I'm going to click send. And then I get 201 created. So it shows me a copy of what I sent in the body of my request, in the body of my response. So I can see all of this. If I go to the joke view on the website, I can see my joke is there. And I can see a couple of other people put jokes there. Let's see if anyone has added any books. Whoops, that's not the path name. Come on, bookworms. Y'all want it to add books here. I'm not seeing any. But yeah, we have jokes. We have a lot of jokes. Do not steal this hilarious joke. Can we go back to the request page? Okay. Let's see. Somebody put the link in. Thank you, Michelle, for putting the link in. Request page. Do you mean this page? Okay. I'm gonna stay here. Stay put. And stay hydrated. This is a great time to drink water if you have water or anything else hydrating next to you. I highly recommend it. But yeah, if you're kind of having troubles, make sure that you have post selected from the dropdown. You have the endpoint and the path for the API you're working with. You have body selected, raw out of body, and then JSON selected as well. And just make sure you have between 2 brackets an ID, author, joke, and source. And all of these things should be between quotation marks. And I will go and check and see if we have any more things at angry noises. Okay, we have angry noises. We have book. I don't know if anyone added anything into quote. Nope. Okay. All right, we've got lots of things. Awesome. So now that we can make a joke, it's also important that we can edit things. So I'm going to make a new request. I'm going to call it edit joke. I'm going to add this here. So my endpoint and my path, and I'm going to select put. This is how we're going to edit jokes. For instance, Bob the Builder, I'm going to request that you edit your joke into something more appropriate for our workshop. So you can go ahead and copy and paste what you pasted before in your post. And we're going to put that in the body of our request. And we're going to check the documentation to make sure we have everything in line. So to update an existing joke, you're going to put the entire object you're trying to update in the body of your request. Leave the ID as is, but make the changes you want to make. So if we look at this example, the post is a joke from Ali Mustafa, one of my coworkers, and it says bugs or features. When he updated it, it says bugs are updated features. So we're going to leave the ID in place, and then we're going to change something, whether it's the joke itself. Please make sure that you're keeping things appropriate so that everyone can have a good time. In my case, I'm going to add my pronouns, they, them, and then I'll also just change the source to say me instead of my own head. My joke is hilarious, so I'm going to keep it how it is. And I'm going to click send. So I've saved it and I've clicked send. And I see 204, no content. So the status means it starts with a 2, so everything's good. 204, no content means everything went well. The API is not sending anything in the body of its response, but don't worry about it. You still did great. So it's just letting us know, don't freak out that there's nothing in the body. It's all good. So if I go to joke, I can see my joke has been updated with, oh, I just realized the visit source is just a link. It's been updated with my name and my pronouns. So if I reload, we can see if people have been updating theirs. Proggers. Okay. This is how we edit things. Let me check on the books, see how people are doing with books. The last 13th. Wonderful. And then see if anyone added a quote. Nope. All right. So we got this. Since we are editing things, please, again, edit your jokes to be appropriate for everyone. Thank you. How do you make the text not black and white? Unfortunately, you can't. This is just how it looks. It would be a cool feature to add to this, though, if you could change the color. Where do we get the source? So the source is just like, where did this joke come from? So you can really type anything that you want. Yeah. Oh, how do you make the text not black and white in Postman? Like the actual, oh, you're talking about the body of your request. Click on this little drop down. So if I have text selected, it's going to be in black and white. If I click on JSON, it's going to be color coded. And that is what we want because we're sending JSON. Cool. Let's see. Were there any other questions? Yours isn't sending. Are you getting an error? 400 bad request. Okay. Some things to double check. Do you have JSON selected? If you do, your text will be color coded. If you have text selected and you try sending this, you're going to get 400 bad requests. So I always like to make sure that we start with JSON selected first. What is the path to view all of the post? So in this particular, actually, let me try something. I tried just going to view. Oh, that will just send me the HTML itself. So for using the API in this case, you won't be able to get all of the jokes at once. If you go to the actual web page, because this has a view on it, it will render all of the jokes at once. Awesome. Books suck. What? Lies. Lies. What do you call a fake noodle? An impasta. Nice. Very nice. There's an amazing quote up there. Let's see. Nice. All right. Thank you for who put that quote there. Let's see if there's any books that have been added. Nope, we still got the same two. Awesome. Cool. So, how exactly do I add a book? That's a great question. Let's go to the documentation and let me make sure that we're still doing well on time. We still are, so that's good. Yeah, so if you go to the documentation and you scroll down all the way to the bottom, making requests for API with the book path. So it tells you how to get a random book, how to get a specific book, how to make a new book, and how to update an existing one, and how to delete one. So if people need a little moment to do that, you know what? I'm just going to show you how to, because that's easier. Add book. We're going to make a post request, and then we're gonna put our path in there, the book path. And then we're gonna save this and go look at the documentation because I don't remember what I need to put for each book. Okay, go ahead and copy and paste this where it says post under making requests for books. And then we're gonna go to body. We're gonna go to raw. We're gonna select JSON from the dropdown. We're gonna paste the book in, and we're gonna change the information to be a book that we actually want in there. And I'm not going to put a link in because I don't feel like Googling it. But I'm going to add Luisha Tish's Jambalaya. Click send. And now you should have it if you go to book. Yeah, look at all these books. Wonderful. Awesome. So we've made so many great things today. We've made lots of jokes. That's not what I meant to do. Look at all these jokes. We have books and we have quotes. Every programmer, let's copy and paste this. That is so true. I even said that. So yes, I can confirm. So now that we have added things, we have edited things, we've gotten so many things, what comes up must come down. It is time for us to delete our work. So go ahead and add a new request. Call it delete whatever it is you're deleting. I will delete a joke. That joke. Let's see. Nope. So choose delete from the drop down. Go ahead and paste your endpoint and your path. Save it. And now let's look at the documentation one more time to see what we need to do. So to delete a quote or joke, in this case, is /quote. I need to change that documentation because it's wrong. So to delete a joke, it's /joke/ the ID of the joke. Similar to when we got a specific item, we can now delete a specific item. So 89 was my joke. I click send. Joke with ID 89 is deleted. And if I go to that page, I will see that it has been deleted. So there are lots of things that we have done today. Oh, my jokes are good. They cannot be deleted. They will live on in your heart. They may be deleted from our server, but they can't be deleted from my heart. So let's see. Yep, I'm seeing some things get deleted. Nice, nice, nice. Plus, you cannot delete 1984. Oh, really? Oh, really? Watch me. I just realized I don't know what the ID is. Wow, there are so many jokes here. I can hope. Let's see. Let's delete that one. And wait, I just realized I'm not even on the right path. That's why I'm not finding it. I'm committed to this bit at this point, but if it's already deleted, I'm going to be sad. Okay, I will see how much time I want to dedicate to this. The answer is not a lot. So it's all right. We're going to delete all of these at the end anyways. Wait.
Sorry, I have a question.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Why do we have to delete them?
Oh, it's not because your jokes are bad. It's because you need to learn how to use a delete method for working with APIs.
Can we add them back after we've learned how to delete them?
I mean, if you want, we clear all of these. Oh, I just deleted the wrong thing again. Whoops. We clear all of these after every workshop so that there's not a bunch of other people's work. We do a lot of these workshops, so it will be deleted at some point, unfortunately, from our server, but you did great.
Thanks.
Yeah. Cool. So we have a little bit of time left. I have a couple last things to show you. What did we learn today? We learned about methods, endpoints, paths, and body data, and we used all of these things with our minds and our hands and our keyboards, and it was great. I have an opportunity for you if you want swag. So we were working out of workspaces today. You were working out of your own private workspace called My Workspace. You can create your own public workspace, which means I'll be able to see it with a collection using any API of your choice. Send it to us on our feedback form, and then I will send you cool swag. I have a list of APIs that you can check out if you are interested in using these. You're not limited to them at all. We have cool ones like Smash Lounge and the Studio Ghibli API and the cat API. Look at that cat. I love it. So you can go ahead and make anything that you want with that, really, and just send it to us, really for us to know that you learned something through the workshop besides working with our API, and that you have worked with a different API. You took your skills and you used them elsewhere, and we're excited for that. So if you want to keep learning, take your learning even further, you can become a student expert. So our student expert certification is free, online, self-paced. It lets you learn more about how to use APIs, build and test API requests in Postman, really learning how to use APIs in Postman as a developer. And so these are some of the things you'll learn. You'll learn about writing test scripts in Postman, running collections, passing data between collections. This is really cool because you can basically make a pseudo application with API request in Postman, which I think is really awesome. And you'll have the option, if you want, to become a student leader in your community where you can help run events with us and spend more time with people like me, because I manage our student programs in the US and Canada and pretty much everywhere that is not the APAC region. So that's me. Additionally, somebody mentioned this earlier, lots of job postings are looking for Postman experience. You can use your Postman Student Expert badge as a way to show your experience. You get a badge at the end. It's an open badge, and you can put it on LinkedIn as a certification. And we've actually had more than a few students at this point get job interviews and move forward in job interview processes because they had their student expert badge. So it is a really cool thing, not just for your own knowledge, but if you're looking for internships, things like that, having that out there. So I'll put a couple of links in the chat right now. First off, how do they make the glasses look real? Here's the link for the student expert training. I'm gonna put the link for the presentation, the slides, and I'm going to put the link for the feedback form where you can also share your public workspace. It has to be a public workspace, otherwise I can't see it. And I will email you if you submit something and I'm like, hey, you worked on this, but I can't see it. Please update it. Yeah, I see people want swag. People were excited about cats. Awesome. Let's see, I have a couple more things that I will show you. So we have resources, our learning center, if you want to learn more about Postman. We have our API network, if you want to see the cool APIs other people are making. And we have our community forum for questions that you have that were not answered in this workshop. And I will answer some questions in just one moment, because there's one last thing I actually want to share with you. If you enjoyed this workshop, if you just can't get enough of APIs and you want more, you should come to our Postman Student Summit. It's a free event that's happening next month on August 7th through 8th. There is a link to check it out. There's going to be speakers. There's going to be a keynote. There's also going to be a hackathon that starts in how many days? Like 9 days. We're starting a pre-event hackathon where the winners will be announced at this summit. So you can go ahead and join that as well. You'll get updates through the Eventbrite notifications. We also have a website. If you want to see more, this will be updated. This website will be updated once all of the speakers have submitted and we have all the schedules put up and stuff. There's going to be networking if you want to meet people all around the world. So yeah. Now that I've gotten all of the links out of the way, please, if you have questions. Oh, someone's got a question. I've been working with APIs for the past few weeks, and I was wondering what is the best way to send images. I use Post to send an image encrypted in base64. Is that a valid method? That is a valid method. I'm trying to think. I haven't sent a whole lot of images through Post request. If you need to ever test it in Postman, there's a way to do that. In the body, if you go to, I want to say it's not form data. Maybe it is form data. Yes, it's form data. You can select a file, and then you can select a file from your computer, and you can upload an image there. So if you're ever testing an API and you want to figure things out that way, you can do that as well. But yeah, sending. Is it actually simple to implement this into your code? How so? Using Postman or not? Yes, it is. In fact, Postman even has, what is it? Hold on. There's a way to, code. Yes, so there's a way to get code snippets for the requests that you build in Postman. So if you click on where the documentation was, there's this little code section. You can do this in curl. You can also do it in any of the languages that we have here, using different libraries and such. So this does a lot of the scaffolding for you. Setting up an API is, depending on what API you're using, it can be a little bit difficult depending on the language, but overall it's really, really easy. So I definitely recommend using this tool that Postman has, because if you're not feeling too confident about things, it's really, really helpful, even if you are feeling confident about things. We have Postman to build our requests for a reason. It should be easy to get the results back. So yeah, I hope that answered your question. Are there any other questions? All the cool kids use Scratch. They do. They do. I used to work for code.org. It wasn't quite Scratch, but same concept. Block languages are cool. All right. They do. Unfortunately, no, it does not have Scratch support. We are right at time at 6 p.m. This is actually the longest that this workshop's ever been before, and I think that's because I was having so much fun with all of y'all. I just wanted to make sure you learned everything you possibly could. Wow. Okay. Yeah, if you have any other questions, here is my email. You can, oh, thank you, yeah. This is my email if you have any more questions. You can also add me on LinkedIn if you have a LinkedIn account. I hope I see some of you at the summit. It seems like a lot of you were really excited about this. So there's going to be more things like this at the summit. So I hope to see you there. Thank you for today. Y'all were so awesome. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your learnathon. And yeah, that's all on my end. Thank you. Okay. Cool. So, bye everyone.
Bye. Thanks for the workshop.